and welcome back to Foundation of Public Speaking. So today we'll look at how to present the speech using nonverbal communications. Can you please do this quiz about body language? Sometimes more than one answer is possible. After this lesson, the student will be able to first, recognize the body language used to deliver a speech. Next, use the body language to enhance the efficiency of the speech. Next, recognize different types of visual aids. And last, how to use the visual aids to enhance the efficiency of the speech. We have two parts in these lessons. So 6.1 will look at how to use the nonverbal delivery. And next, 6.2, using visual aids. So in nonverbal delivery, we have three things to discuss. The first one, posture, tư thế. Next, gesture, cử chỉ. And last, eye contact, giao tiếp bằng mắt. So the posture or the facial expressions or the gesture or eye contact all affect the way listeners respond to a speaker. And how we use these and other body motions to communicate is the subject of kinesics. So let's watch the video and see how good and bad posture of the speaker can affect the speech.
When I'm training, people often ask me what stance or posture they should have when they're presenting. So I've got Josh here, my glamorous assistant. Hello.
Hello.
And I'm going to use you as my demo subject. So first thing to do is to have your feet about hip width apart and facing forward. So that's lovely. Good. And then we want to get really grounded in your feet. So imagine that you've got some tree roots holding you solid into the earth's crust. In fact, I'm just going to ask you to take your hands out your pockets just to the side there for me. So imagine that you've got some tree roots holding you nice and solid, holding those feet solid into the earth's crusts, and get grounded in your feet. Now the way I know you're grounded is I'm going to give you a little shove. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. And let's see if you're grounded. Okay, yeah, not bad, but a little bit weak. So really think about planting your feet and putting your energy, instead of here worrying about whether your feet are right, put your energy down into your feet. Can you do that for me now? Okay. I'll give you another shove and hopefully, yeah, much stronger. Good. Relax into, it's okay, relax into it. That's still stronger. You're like a tree in the wind having strong roots. That's lovely. Then moving up, you're going to have straight legs, which they are, but it looks like your knees are on the lock, I'm not sure. So just take them off the lock a little bit, because we don't want soldier, we want just relaxed. Then moving up here, your arms are good now, they're nice and relaxed by your side, which is lovely. If you find them sort of coming over here a little bit, don't just move your hands, move your shoulders back in order to make sure your hands are nice and relaxed by your side. So if your shoulders are in the right place, the hands should automatically be in the right place. So that's good, lovely. Remember to breathe. Breathing's good, it's okay. When you stand up like this with your head facing forward now, you'll be able to see that we've got this access so you can breathe easily. Because if people tend to do this with their head often, and you can hear the quality of my voice has already decreased, rather than if I lift my head, there's much more quality of voice and you can be louder and reach the back of the room. Then we're going to imagine that we've got a string pulling you nice and straight up. That's good, you've got a good posture there. The aim is to look confident and that you've got gravitas and you've got that leadership of the room. Go back to your old style for a moment now for me. You had your hands in your pockets as well, didn't you? Yeah, so that, you know, that looks very relaxed, but it doesn't look like you've got gravitas. It doesn't look like you're leading the room. The problem with that is if you're not leading the room, someone else will be. You don't want that. So back up to your presenter stance. So this will also make you feel really confident and relaxed. Does it feel quite calm inside?
It does.
So the last point to make it really calm is about your vision. So just look at a point in the distance for me, and then you're in peripheral vision. Look at that point. You can still see the ceiling and the floor and the walls either side, can't you? Great. And then you would just, that's your kind of safety zone. And then as you want to talk to specific people, you would move your head and make eye contact with them. But if ever you need a safety spot to remember what you want to say, to just gather your thoughts, this is your kind of safety stance and your safety spot. So you're not going to stay like this forever, you're okay, but this is your base safety position. And then from there you can add in hand movements, or if you're more advanced you can actually move around the room. But hand movements can be added in, but only once you know what you're doing. So for now, if you don't know what you're doing yet, because I haven't taught you yet, you haven't watched the video yet, keep everything still. You can't go wrong. You could present like that for 5 minutes without anyone minding, because you've got your voice to make things interesting. You don't need your hands and your rest of your body. You can just be interesting with your voice alone and your words and your content.
So let's look at how good posture can affect on speaker. So Amy has used to conduct a research called the power process to assess the effect of body language on confidence. So power poses ask you to stand up straight in a bold stance, take up more space by putting the hand on the hips like Wonder Woman's, and smile broadly to indicate the confidence. Vậy thì có một cái nghiên cứu của Amy đã chỉ ra một cái tư thế quyền lực, đúng không ạ? Để đánh giá cái sự ảnh hưởng của ngôn ngữ cơ thể đối với sự tự tin. Và cái tư thế quyền lực này thì yêu cầu các bạn sẽ phải đứng thẳng và chiếm càng nhiều không gian càng tốt, bằng cách là đặt tay lên hông như Wonder Woman và mỉm cười một cách rất là tươi để thể hiện cái sự tự tin. So the basic idea behind the experiments is to constructively position the body in such a way that by standing and smiling confidently, you must feel more confident about yourself. It successfully concluded that merely standing powerfully causes your mind to boost the confidence and deliver a better presentation in front of an audience without being anxious. That's the prime example of how good posture affects you. Vậy thì nghiên cứu này đã kết luận rằng là chúng ta chỉ cần đứng một cách mạnh mẽ thôi đã khiến cho tâm trí của mình có thêm sự tự tin và có thể đưa ra một cái bài thuyết trình tốt hơn cho những khán giả mà chúng ta không cần phải lo lắng. Và đây là một cái ví dụ điển hình về một cái tư thế tốt sẽ ảnh hưởng đến cái người nói như thế nào. Next one, a good posture can affect on the audience as well. So since we're talking about public speaking, you can't ignore the positive effects of opting for a good posture on your listeners. So the finding make it crystal clear that the openness of the speaker body language and the closeness to the audience improve the positive reception of the speaker. Vậy thì bởi vì chúng ta đang nói về những cái hùng biện, đúng không ạ? Nói trước công chúng thì chúng ta sẽ không thể bỏ qua những cái tác động tích cực của việc chọn một tư thế tốt đối với người nghe. Và chúng ta có những cái nghiên cứu cho thấy rõ rằng là nếu mà chúng ta càng cởi mở trong ngôn ngữ cơ thể và càng gần lại với người nghe hơn thì cái bài nói của chúng ta sẽ được tiếp nhận một cách tích cực hơn. Exercise 1. Matching the below description with the posture. You can use a word more than once. So next one, let's look at the gesture. I want you to click on the video link and see how to do the below purposes. For example, how to list, how to level things, how to point, how to show this and that, how to prompt, and how to support by other gesture.
Do you know that the least popular public speakers use an average of 272 hand gestures during the 18-minute talk? Whereas the most popular public speakers use an average of 465 hand gestures in an 18-minute talk. That's almost the double. And this fact completely shocked me and made me think, why are hand gestures so important? And what are the most popular hand gestures? I also thought of how can everyone use their hand gestures to deliver an effective talk. So what I did is I observed some well-known public speakers and then created a list of top 6 hand gestures that can help you deliver an influential public speech. So this is Michelle and you're watching me on Skillopedia, the place to learn skills for the real world. So let's begin with the first gesture. So the first gesture that I'm going to talk about today is Well, do you think, can you guess what I mean here? I mean listing. The easiest and most basic hand gesture is listing. Anytime you say a number, you can list it with your hand. This adds movement and warmth to your body language and also attracts the listener's attention. So let's see an example of how you can use this gesture in your speech. So imagine that you're delivering a speech on why and how to deliver a good public speech. For this, you can say, 1, you need the skill of controlling anxiety. Second, you need the skill of creating good PowerPoint presentations. And third, the skill of maintaining eye contact. And fourth, the art of telling stories. And lastly, using humor. So what you just noticed is I used my hand to draw your attention. So the next time you are adding any numbers in your presentation, make sure that you use your hands to do the listing. The next useful gesture is to show the level of something. So this is a really easy one and can be used literally to show someone what level something is. For example, if something is high or if something is low. You can use this to indicate how big or small something is or where someone stands. Let's look at an example. You can use the high version like this for saying something like, it's a pretty big deal. Or you can use the low version by saying, it's a matter of least importance. So it's a pretty big deal and it's a matter of least importance. Not only that, you can use this as an alternative to listing as you talk about different stages. For example, you could say in a speech, we start with the introduction, then move on to the structure, and we end with the conclusion. So here I've used my hand to show the level or the structure of something. And next up is the very popular hand gesture, which is pointing gesture. So you didn't expect this to be on the list and you might be confused that is it positive or negative? Well, I would say that this one should be used with caution because normally people don't like to be pointed at. It can seem as if you're accusing them. However, you can point to get someone's attention or literally to make a point. For example, this gesture goes very well along with saying something like, you know, I just remembered something important. Or you could say, this one's important. Or you could use pointing when you want to say, let me tell you something. All right. So here we've looked at 3 hand gestures and now we're going to look at the 4th one. So the next hand gesture is this and that. Whenever you want to separate 2 different ideas or things that you're saying, you can use your hands to represent that. For example, I might say, we are totally different from them. Using my left hand when I say we and my right hand when I say them. So this is a great way to put distance between two things and show that these are two separate things or two separate ideas. So once again, you could say we are totally different from them. Also, you can use this gesture to show a change. It can be used along with this example. It really changed my mind from positive to negative. Or you could say, I stopped doing hard work after I learned about smart work. So, just like listing, whenever you're contrasting different ideas, use your hands to show it. This is a powerful persuasion technique, which means it can persuade your audience to believe what you're saying is right or to convince them of your opinion. So this can go well with this and that, or when you're talking about two different places, here and there, or about the size, big and small. I believe you've got the idea of how to use this hand gesture to separate two different things. Now, to build on my previous point about engaging the audience, so you use your hands to engage the audience, you can also use some prompting gestures. So you might wonder, what are prompting gestures? So these are those gestures that when you ask audience to do something, you do it along with them. So if you ask your listeners to raise their hand, you raise it along with them. Or if you ask them to clap or perform any other action, you do it with them. So this is the reason you need to do this is to get them more engaged in your talk. For example, you might say, raise your hand if you want to earn $1 million this year. So when you say this, you should first raise your hand because people and your audience will follow you, right? This is because your audience is more likely to do it if they see you doing it. But if you don't do it, there's a high possibility that they won't do it. So if you think you and your audience are super enthusiastic, you could even ask them to jump up and down on the spot if they want to earn $1 million this year. But as I mentioned earlier, if you want them to perform any specific action, you must do it with them first. So when it comes down to using gestures effectively, I guess the rule is, if the gestures are supporting what you're saying, then they're probably going to be great. And if they take you away from what you are saying, like probably you're scratching your face or adjusting your clothes or playing with your ring or probably, clasping your hands, then they're probably taking away from your presentation and not really adding. So at the end of the day, it comes down to preparation and practice. And with gestures, the most important thing is to be natural. So don't really try and force yourself if you don't feel natural. If it is flowing like it does in everyday conversations with your friends and family, then it's a good sign and you should go ahead with using those gestures. So you need to find out which one of these gestures are you comfortable with. Which one of these gestures would you like to involve in your presentation? Because not all gestures can be used by everybody. So pick up your top 3 and leave them in the comments so I can find out which hand gestures would you like to use to deliver an effective speech. So thank you so much for staying with me. I hope this session has been helpful for you. And next time when you're delivering your speech, you will not stand with your hands like this, or like this. It's a good idea to use this powerful tool to deliver an effective speech. So thank you so much for staying with me. See you soon in another session. Bye.
Exercise 2. Practice the following phrases and sentences using supportive hand gestures. So let's talk about eye contact. Giao tiếp bằng mắt. One of the quickest way to establish a communicative bond with your listener is to look at them personally and pleasantly. So you should try to establish eye contact with your whole audience. When addressing a small audience, you can usually look briefly from one person to another, but for a larger group, you will probably scan the audience rather than try to engage the eyes of each person individually. Vậy thì một trong những cách nhanh nhất để có thể thiết lập một cái mối liên kết giao tiếp với người nghe, đó là chúng ta sẽ nhìn họ một cách cá nhân, đúng không ạ? Và nhìn họ một cách dễ chịu thôi ạ. Và chúng ta nên cố gắng thiết lập giao tiếp bằng mắt với toàn bộ khán giả của mình. Thế thì nếu mà trong một cái khối lượng, trong một cái căn phòng mà số lượng người nghe khá là nhỏ thì chúng ta có thể nhìn từ người này sang người khác, đúng không ạ? Đối với một nhóm lớn hơn thì các bạn sẽ quét khán giả thay vì là cố gắng thu hút ánh mắt của từng người một. So next is visual aids. First, we'll look at different types of visual aids. Next is the guidelines for preparing visual aids. And last, we will talk about the guidelines for using visual aid. So visuals help you to give a lot of information in a short space of time. They are really quick snapshots of situations, developments, events, and processes, which would take a long time to explain fully in words. Good visual aids speak for themselves and require a little or no description, but you often need to draw your audience attention to one or more key points before you discuss them in more detail. So we have different types of visual aids like object, photographs, graphs, transparency, multimedia presentations, models, drawing, charts, video, and the speaker. Chúng ta có thể có những cái loại visual aids như sau ạ. Thứ nhất là chúng ta có thể mang một cái mô hình models, đúng không ạ? Có thể đó là một bức tranh, có thể nó là một cái bảng biểu hay là một video. So we have a checklist to prepare visual aids. You need to ask yourself these 10 questions. The first one, have I prepared my visual aids well in advance? Second, are my visual aids clear and easy to comprehend? Next, does each visual aid contain only the information needed to make my point? Next, are my visual aids large enough to be seen clearly by the entire audience? Next, do the colors on my visual aids work well together? Number 6, is there a clear contrast between the lettering and background on my charts, graphs, and drawing? Do I use line graph, pie graphs, or bar graphs correctly to show the statistical trends and pattern? Do I limit charts to no more than 8 items? Do I use fonts that are easy to read? And do I use a limited number of fonts? And then we'll have a checklist to present visual aids. So the first question, can I present my visual aids without writing or drawing on the chalkboard? Have I checked the speech room to decide where I can display my visual aids more efficiently? Next one, have I practiced presenting my visual aids so they will be clear visible to everyone in the audience? Next, have I practiced setting up and talking down my visual aids so that I can do both smoothly during the speech? Next, have I practiced keeping eye contact with my audience while presenting my visual aids? Question number 6, have I practiced explaining my visual aids clearly and concisely in terms my audience will understand? Number 7, if I am using handouts, have I planned to distribute them after the speech rather than during it? Number 8, have I double-checked all the equipment to make sure it works properly? And number 9, have I rehearsed my speech with the equipment I will use during the final presentation? Exercise 3. Patricia is a market researcher. She's been commissioned by Courts Power Groups to survey the company's customer. She is presenting her findings with the help of some visual aids. Can you please watch the video and give comments on her design and use of visual aids?
Patricia Reyes is a market researcher. She has been commissioned by Courts Power Group to survey the company's customers. She is presenting her findings with the help of some visual aids.
So I'm here today to present you with the results of that survey. Now, to do this, I've divided my presentation into 3 parts. Firstly, I'll talk about the background to the research. Then we'll look at how we approach the research. And thirdly, I'll summarize the key findings of the research. So let's start with a brief description of the background. 6 months ago, your company found that there was an increasing number of customers in one of your company's 3 regions that were canceling their contracts within 14 days. There were also a growing number of complaints to the call center. So the key questions our survey needed to ask were, why so many complaints and why so many cancellations? Of course, there were also other issues that our survey needed to take into account. So once we selected the 90,000 customers across your company's 3 regions, we then emailed them the survey. We allowed 4 weeks for them to respond to the surveys. And after that period, we received a 4% response rate. Now, this is quite good for this type of survey. We then analyzed those responses and compiled them in a report for you. Let's look at those responses in a bit more detail. Now, of that 4%, this blue section shows that 57% of those responses came from the region with the difficulties. That's significant, as you are more likely to receive responses from customers who are either very satisfied or very unsatisfied. Anyway, this leads me on to the third and main part of my presentation, the actual results of the survey. Now, in front of you, there's a copy of the survey's findings. I'm going to summarize the key findings for each of these questions. So let's begin with question 1, which asks your customers how likely they are to recommend your company to a friend. As you can see, we have used a scale with 0 being not at all likely and 10 being extremely likely. According to this chart, the overall response indicates that customers are fairly likely to recommend your company. However, this chart represents an average response across the 3 regions. If we break these responses down into the 3 regions like this, it illustrates the difference in customer satisfaction region by region. Now remember, red and yellow are the regions with increasing numbers of customers. Consequently, the responses are quite high, even as high as 10. But the lower scores in the previous chart were caused by the decline in these blue responses here. They go down to the 0 level in some cases.
So to sum up, in this lesson, we'll look at non-verbal delivery using posture, gesture, and eye contact, and how to prepare and using visual aids. Okay, so this is the end of our modules. I hope that you have grabbed some interesting ideas about how to do the public speaking. So thank you, and see you in the next modules.